Hello, and welcome to Unity of Fredericksburg. My name is Andrea, and I'm pleased to welcome all of you to the Unity of Fredericksburg weekly online gathering. At Unity of Fredericksburg, we are advancing the movement of spiritual awakening and transformation through unity, a positive path for spiritual living. We thank those of you watching on YouTube, live or later, and invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you are able to attend live, we encourage you to join us in the Zoom community room for the full Sunday morning experience, including music, prayer, and connection. Our weekly newsletter includes the Sunday service link, and you can subscribe to receive that on our website at uofva.org. For everyone local to Central Virginia, Unity of Fredericksburg offers a variety of fun and enriching in-person gatherings every month. Subscribe to our weekly newsletter at uofva.org for all the details. Our message and meditation today comes from Reverend Alva Pope. Alva is a master communicator, writer, and therapist who is affectionately called the griefologist by those who are familiar with her work. Her passion for life has allowed her to work as a professional social worker and ordained pastor in a non-denominational Christian church. Alva is an established clinician and provides outpatient therapy, psychosocial education, healing sessions, and professional development as a part of her practice. The mission of her work is to help those who wish to help themselves. Alva believes that one good conversation can change your life and uses her gifts of quality time and compassion to engage you in life-altering pursuits. Alva is always engaged in a book study, whether on a solo mission or engaged in conversation with others. She is newly married, a mother of two, and welcomes her bonus two children into her home. She is a native of Richmond and received all her formal education in Virginia. Alva's newest pursuits are podcasting and creating with her Cry Cut Maker cutting machine. And now, here is Reverend Alva Pope.
Good morning. Excuse me, Unity of Fredericksburg. I am so excited to be here, and we're going to journey through um, prayer. Um, we just recently had our World Day of Prayer, and it was exciting. And I'm a prayer chaplain also at Unity of Bon Air, and I enjoy praying, but more than that, I enjoy just learning and sharing and expanding my ideas about, the process of prayer. I think, before education, before venturing into ministry, prayer started, and it seems that we are just moving through and just asking for something and, you know, looking for the magic of if I request it, then I should get it process. But as we grow and learn, we understand that prayer is completely something else. We understand that prayer is known as the most accelerated step to increasing your mind in action. And our relationship with creation, divine mind, God, however you experience the source, is often either enhanced or tainted by the way we see prayer or the effectiveness of prayer. And so today I want to share with you all some thoughts and ideas that I have or have learned or gained on prayer. And one of the books I'm going to be coming from today is How to Use Your 12 Gifts from God by William Ward. And this is just a different take on um, faith as a gift that we use and activate during prayer. Affirmative prayer reminds us that as one of the ministers, the New Thought ministers, reminds us, and she shared it in a writing that she did for Unity um, about accepting the possible, is that I'm not asking for something, I'm activating something. And William Ward in his book also tells us and reminds us that we are not asking for something, we are activating something. So the unity principles and the unity movement is steeped in the principles of the 12 powers, and it's derived from the 12 disciples. And then William Ward references this as the 12 gifts. And so as we begin to embody this and move from asking something outside of ourselves for something and move to the place where we're activating something within us. It moves from being a power that we exact on the outside of us to a gift that we activate on the inside of us. And prayer is the highway that we use all of our gifts and activate all of our gifts to be in the presence and be in the stillness with divine mind. And so when we get on that highway, when we're more equipped with the tools that we need, um, to move along and to effectuate and to manifest what we want, um, we are comforted, we are expanded, we are more loving, we are more gracious. We become more of who we were intended to be. And so today, I hope that listening and talking with you all, we all will leave feeling more like who we were meant to be, more expanded, more loving, more free to be ourselves. And so, one of the most into a place of stillness is understanding your perceptions because perception is everything. Um, and our perception develops our consciousness. Louise Hay, I'm a student of Hay House, he reminds us that um, we are under the law of our own consciousness. So it's not so much important what someone else says or thinks about us. It is really important what we say yes to, what we think and what we believe, and what we continue to embed in our consciousness. And that being the case, we have the power and the gifting, if we activate them, to change our lives into anything that we want it to be. This is why, when you recognize the law of our consciousness and perception, this is why it is important to know what you're thinking about. And often, when we go into prayer, we probably haven't taken the time what we are thinking about. And this is where I want to share with you um, that I was watching a movie recently called Sight. And it's about a young man who is now a Chinese American citizen. And he had to leave his country because it was occupied and he wanted to become a physician. And because of the occupation of his country, he wasn't able to become a physician. They closed all the schools and it was derailed and he was very frustrated. His parents told him that he needed to work so he could provide for himself, and they encouraged him to learn to play a musical instrument. And in playing that musical instrument, he learned, and his dad said, you would have to work really hard and work diligently in order to perfect this instrument, be picked up by a traveling musical troupe, and move around the world so that you can, or around the country so that you can make some money. He was very discouraged by this, but he followed his father's advice. He learned to play the instrument. And one day, while sitting with his friend and her father, the father was blinded after a work incident and a work accident. And he was listening to the young man play, and he said, you could improve your playing if you would play from your heart. And the young man said, what's the difference of where I pray from? And the man shared this story with him. He says, one of the musicians that the little boy, the young youth, learned from was blind. And he asked the boy, he said, did you know that this musician that you revere was blind? And he says, I did know that he was blind. He said, did you know that he had been blind since birth? And the young man said he hadn't. And so the father of this young girl was talking to this young boy, and I'm going somewhere with this, says to him, I myself am blind, but I became blind as an old man. He said, the person that you revere, who's the musician who plays beautiful music, has been blind since birth. He says, I, who was blinded older, have memories of beautiful things that I can envision. I remember what my wife's face looks like. I remember what my daughter's face looks like. I remember the beauty of the trees in the area that surrounds me. He says, but this musician that you love does not have any memory, and he must create beauty in his own vision without sight. And I share that with you all to say this. A lot of times we go into prayer with memories of things that we have seen and experienced. And sometimes there's an advantage of going into the blind. And this is our opportunity to relearn and to consider the concept that I take a lot of things that I think are beautiful, I think are bad into prayer, when in fact it is time to activate my faith. And so, Reverend D.N. Morency, who is a unity minister, um, she informs us that most of us attempt to activate a new understanding while still choosing to live in an old awareness. And so when we go into prayer with the things that we already know, we fall away from this new opportunity or new understanding to activate the new thought instead of the old awareness. And so this is our invitation now to walk with faith and expand our abilities to be on the highway of prayer in a way that maybe we have not experienced before. We cling to what is familiar, familiar patterns, familiar thoughts, the way that we've heard other people pray, the way that we ourselves have been taught to speak to ourselves. We cling to that and we reject old beliefs and recognize it as a reason to wander. So we hold on to it and yet we are moving because all of us are introduced or brought to new thought because we're leaving, and that's why we're called new thought, because we're leaving traditional ways of thinking. And yet when we come, there we are. And we still embody these familiar patterns of fear and familiar patterns of condemnation or rejection. And yet we're thinking, I don't want to be over there, but I bring this awareness with me. So what do I do? We begin to wonder, we begin to wander, and then we're hoping to find a place such as unity that helps us to find our way. When you consciously tap into your subconscious, so this is how we transform from, being in the familiar and shedding an old awareness. We have to move between the spaces of consciousness and subconsciousness, right? The thoughts that we don't think about. But the best way and the easiest way to do that is to not to delve into it and not to try to understand it, but simply to acknowledge that there is a thought process that is probably going on that is not obvious to me. That is my thought process. It is not obvious. I don't know how to circumvent it, but just to say, hey, I really want to shed that. I really want to release that. I really want to let it go and move into higher states of consciousness and move into this is the activation that William March talks about. When we consciously acknowledge my prayers are not effective or as effective as I want them to be, what am I doing? And sometimes it's just the subconscious taking over, and we're afraid to leave the familiar, even though we want to, even though we understand the necessity of it. And so then what we begin to do is just acknowledge that I probably have some thoughts that I'm not aware of or that are just not as obvious as I need them to be that are blocking me. And so, what we learn to do is activate our faith. And when we begin to activate our faith, we say yes to God. We say yes to our good. Wart in his book reminds us that activating your faith is saying yes to my good and yes to God. He also acknowledges that there are barriers to this. And one of the barriers um, is that in saying yes to God, we say yes to that which is invisible. We say yes to that which is invisible. And when we say yes to that which is invisible, we can still move back into familiar patterns and say to ourselves, yeah, but catastrophe is possible too. Yes, but our good is as equally possible. It is as equally possible and likely that the good that we deserve and desire is available to us because we can say yes to our good, which is the activation of our faith. The 12 powers reminds us to detach from the form, but not to exchange lowered expectations, but to realize that when we detach from form, we can activate the good. We don't have to sit in the place that it's possible and it's not likely in a situation. Remember the person blind from birth and the person who's blind after seeing life. We don't have to stay in that realm. We can absolutely say yes to the good, yes to what is possible, and continue to affirm that until you don't have to remind yourself because it always becomes your subconscious. So as we do that, our perceptions, beliefs, and expectations change. And just as we have the pre stories of when we could see or what we're looking at, that's why it's important to go into stillness and meditation and then prayer so that you can challenge anything that you bring into the story, any belief or lowered expectation, we can change it. The next thing we want to talk about is remember that we are moving from asking for something to activating something. I'm activating my truth. I'm activating what is good. I'm saying yes to my good. I am saying yes to God. Even if I don't believe it. That's why we have to say affirmations over and over again so that they get embedded into our consciousness so that we can continue to say yes to the possibility, which sometimes are interrupted by the reality. Possibilities are sometimes waylaid by the reality of what life is, the reality of what has happened, the reality of statistics or statistically speaking. And we can say, I reject that. I deny that. We're all familiar with denials. I deny that. And now I receive that God is my good. And I say yes to that. Faith is a tool, a power, and a gift with which we build consciousness. Warch explains you can use faith as a consciousness building tool because saying yes to God and your good is the way that you lift yourself from one limited level by saying yes to a greater level. So if I'm limited and I can only see what I can see, if I don't know what to say, I can say yes to my good. I'm expecting all good from God. And that way I lift myself out of what I know for sure, what I've experienced, what life has taught me, to what I don't know, but what is possible. But when you say yes to God, you are only saying yes to good. We don't have to argue because God is only good. Divine mind is only our highest and our best. And so I don't have to negotiate that. I can just say God first, yes to God, yes to my good. And that way I shed the mind that says that's not real. I shed the mind that's illusory. I shed the mind that reminds me that this is not possible just by saying yes to my good, yes to higher states of consciousness. An example of this change is when we talk about moving into health. And this is just a concrete example so that when you think about how does this look, what does this mean when I say yes to my good? Often we say, cure me and then I will believe. But the truth of the matter is, you must affirm health, see health, and that is a pathway to cure. Then I will be cured. But if I don't believe that it is possible, no medicine, no intervention, no medical care, no medical facility in the world can help us if I just don't believe that health is possible. And I think sometimes we get impossible news, impossible situations, and it's easier than you think, easier than we acknowledge, easier than we accept to say, this is not real. Because more often we're not thinking about what we're thinking about. We know what is visible and we negate what is invisible. But every time you activate your gift of faith and say, I say yes to what is good, I say yes to the possibility which remains invisible. I say yes to God's highest and best for me. And I manifest that by saying yes to the good always and never lowering my expectations. Anything is better when your attitude is better. All things are better when we improve our states of consciousness by saying yes to our good. Another example that we use in unity is that no good can come from this. Some of the things that are going on in the world, we think to ourselves, no good can come of this. And we confirm it and we say it out loud and we watch the news and we watch social media and we talk to our friends and everybody affirms or negates that anything good. We speak negatively that anything good can come of this. And simply in unity, we are taught to say, I can't wait to see what wonderful good will come of this. How many of you will join me in saying, I cannot wait to see what wonderful good will come of any situation that you feel is an impossible situation? Anything, whether it be worldwide, nationwide, community wide, personally, personally within your body, right? Individually within your body, whatever it is, be willing to exact your faith and say, I say yes to my good, and I cannot wait to see what wonderful outcomes will result from this situation. Another example that William March um, talks about or shares with us is that when you believe your good can be drawn to you, then your faith moves it into expression. This is why affirmation may need to be repeated many times until you believe them. When your subconscious accepts your affirmation, you as a spiritual being give God permission to move through you as a fulfillment. To move through you as a fulfillment. Try a prayer in the morning before you put your feet on the floor and simply affirm, God, use me as a light, as me, through me, for me. Use me today to be a blessing to someone. So as we activate and we say yes to our good and we think about what we are thinking about and we realize that we're not praying to something, we're not praying to a power or an energy outside of us, but to a power and a gift that is inside of us. We begin to see the 12 gifts, the 12 powers, the 12 disciples as something that is a part of us that we can use as a tool to be effective, to function, to move through the world, to be better. And when we do that in prayer, denials take on a different path. Affirmations take on a different power. Because what would happen if you were confident that God is only interested in giving you the best? That divine mind is only interested in giving you the best, that you can transcend your own subconscious, your own negative beliefs simply by acknowledging that there is a power greater than I that allows me to be a channel, a conduit, to be a light in this world for myself and for others simply by saying yes to my good, simply by affirming that God is good and God is good for me and desires only my good. So, as we ponder that and as we move through the space of thinking about faith as a tool to help us to synchronize with the Christ mind, with the Christ light, with our light, with that light that lives within us, the light that is ours, the light that you claim, that we're going to boost our own confidence today. We're going to use what we are learning and what we already know to release anything that no longer serves, to release anything that we have decided is not good, and to just say yes to our good, detaching from the form, detaching from the details, recognizing that sometimes the errors are in the details. Because when we know what to expect, then we know what to expect. And sometimes we need to let go of what we expect and just expect the good, my highest, my best, even if I don't know what that looks like, even though I know what that sounds like, we expect what is good and what is great. So as we move into a place of meditation and as we ponder that faith is our ability to activate the gifts that we always possess, that we always have, even when we forget, as soon as we remember, we can say yes. We can say yes to our good. I want you to center yourself and take deep breaths as we move into a place of peace, as we move into a place of quiet. I want you to listen and be soothed by this song, which I think is very important, which I think is very life giving. I want to share it with you just for a few moments.
Turns out I'm not afraid of the dark. I'm afraid of the light. It turns out I'm not afraid of fear. Oh, I'm afraid of love. Lead the way and guide me home, 'cause I don't know which way to go. Lead the way for me. It turns out you were waiting for me to say there has to be a better way. It turns out that this is the day. So please show me a better way. Light the path in front of me so I can clearly see. Lead the way for me. Lead the way for me. Lead the way for me. Lead the way for me.
So as we move into the silence, take a deep breath and activate your faith, which is your ability to say yes. And as you center yourself and enter into your space, wiggling your fingers and your toes, simply repeat out loud or inwardly, I say yes to God. I say yes to my good. And so it is. Namaste.
Well, thank you so much, Reverend Alva. That was just filled with all kinds of tools we can use, and what a beautiful meditation. Thanks for watching the weekly broadcast from Unity of Fredericksburg. Visit our website, uofva.org, to learn more about our mission of spiritual awakening and transformation, and support our ministry with your financial donation. Thanks again for watching, and see you next time.